While cooperatives are well spread across the world, many institutions started with another form and were organized as non-governmental organizations, NGOs. Is it surprising? Not really, since most of these organizations started with the help of donors, and thus with subsidies as key financing. Some donors can only support non-profit organizations by law, partly to avoid market distortion among commercial actors. What obliged them to work only with non-profit entities? In fact, policymakers or lawmakers were all confronted with the same question. If markets were supposed to be competitive, how could they justify supporting one for-profit company rather than another? We will later analyze in this MOOC the impact of subsidized versus commercial financing on the performance of microfinance institutions. The most important thing at this stage is to understand that non-profit organizations are or have been the most obvious structure to start a microfinance institution. Many of these NGOs stay small, but some of them have been able to grow rapidly, such as BRAC in Bangladesh, which has reached millions of borrowers. The regulated for-profit entities are the third types of organization frequently used in microfinance. It may be surprising for you to discover that for-profit organizations, such as banks, are active in microfinance. Did Muhammad Yunus not say that he wanted to do the opposite to banks? Do microfinance institutions not have poverty alleviation as a primary mission? Weren't banks notoriously not used to working with microfinance clients? Frequently because they were simply not interested in them. These were indeed open questions when banks started to be increasingly interested in microfinance, or when some NGOs asked to be regulated and transformed into banks. Nevertheless, it's not a totally new phenomenon, since some banks have been active for a long time in microfinance, even if they were the exception. Why did they do it? I would say there are three main motivations. The first and most obvious one may be seen as a corporate social responsibility policy. Indeed, offering financial services to people previously financially excluded may be a way for banks to be socially responsible. Some criticism have however been that some of these banks were only doing it for their public image. The interest of other banks originated in the fierce competition for the wealthy or even the middle class. Their mindset was something like, if all my colleagues focus on the same segment, should I not try to differentiate myself? Others started microfinance because they simply consider it as a profitable market. Relatively early, some cases show that microfinance could be profitable. Yes, it was possible to make profit and offer very small loans. Microfinance institutions being able to do this have to monitor their costs very carefully, particularly the operating costs. It's a daily challenge according to many managers, but the profitability of some MFIs show that it's possible. There are not only microfinance banks that are regulated microfinance providers. There are also what we call non-banking financial institutions, which are most of the time regulated organizations, even if sometimes lightly regulated. They are, however, not full-fledged banks. Unlike microfinance banks, they cannot offer all financial services. Nevertheless, for the sake of simplicity, we will often group them with banks as regulated microfinance institutions. Before we close down this video, I just would like to come back to one element previously raised this week: the high interest rate of microcredits. In the paper titled The Business Model of Microfinance, Robert Kuhl, Ashley Demirkukund, and Jonathan Murdoch show that banks charge less than NGOs. This may be surprising for many of you. In fact, the analysis highlights that banks tend to offer larger loans than NGOs. It's obviously easier to cut price when you offer larger loans because of the fixed cost that you experience. Whatever the size of the loan, you need to pay your rent or your staff. For-profit MFIs offer cheaper loans, but they target other markets.